The silence in the Vatican's quantum observatory shattered as every system simultaneously screamed to life. Dr. Elena Santos dropped her coffee mug, barely registering the ceramic shards scattering across the floor. Her eyes fixed on the display that showed an impossible signal piercing through subspace, defying every known law of physics. "This can't be right," she whispered, fingers flying across the holographic interface. The signal repeated its pattern, a perfect mathematical sequence that spoke of artificial origin, yet possessed a complexity that made Earth's most advanced quantum computers look like pocket calculators. Within hours, similar reports flooded in from observatories across the globe. The signal wasn't just aimed at Earth. It was specifically calibrated to be detected by human technology. As governments scrambled and social media exploded with theories, Dr. Santos found herself rushed to an emergency United Nations session in New York. The General Assembly Hall hummed with tension as representatives from every nation huddled over tablets displaying the signal's analysis. Dr. Santos stood at the podium, her dark eyes scanning the anxious faces before her. "The message embedded in the signal has been decoded," she announced, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "We are being asked for help." The laughter that rippled through the chamber was tinged with hysteria. Help? From humans? The species that still couldn't agree on basic climate protocols or achieve sustainable fusion power. Dr. Santos raised her hand, commanding silence. "The message comes from something calling itself the Galactic Computational Consortium. They've encountered a mathematical anomaly that threatens the stability of multiple star systems. Their most advanced artificial intelligences have failed to solve it. They believe, and I quote, human neural architecture may possess unique properties suitable for this challenge." The next week passed in a blur of global video conferences, emergency legislative sessions, and frantic preparations. The consortium had provided coordinates for a quantum translocation device that would allow for near-instantaneous travel to their facility. The catch: they needed Earth's best minds within the next 30 days, or the anomaly would grow beyond containment. In a converted warehouse in Geneva, Dr. Santos watched as the selection committee argued over candidates. The wall behind them displayed profiles of the world's leading mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists. But something felt wrong about their approach. "We're thinking about this backwards," she interrupted, drawing surprised looks. "We don't need the most qualified people by traditional standards. We need the ones who think differently." That's how they ended up with their final team. Dr. Marcus Chen, a quantum physicist who'd been laughed out of academia for suggesting consciousness affected quantum observations. Dr. Fatima Al-Rashid, a teenage prodigy who developed revolutionary algorithms while gaming. Professor James Okonjo, whose work combining indigenous African mathematical systems with modern computing had yielded unprecedented results. And Dr. Santos herself, whose unconventional approach to quantum mechanics had made her both famous and controversial. The day of departure arrived with little fanfare. The team gathered in a secured facility in the Atacama Desert, surrounded by equipment they hoped would help them face whatever challenge awaited. The quantum translocation device, a gift from the consortium, looked deceptively simple, a perfect sphere of what appeared to be black glass, floating inches above its pedestal. "Ready?" Dr. Santos asked her team, receiving determined nods in response. They'd spent weeks preparing, but how could anyone truly be ready to be the first humans to step into the wider galaxy? As they approached the sphere, its surface rippled like disturbed water. Dr. Santos thought of all the science fiction stories she'd read as a child, all the dreams of humanity reaching the stars. None had predicted this scenario. Advanced aliens reaching out not to conquer or enlighten, but to ask for help. The sphere's surface touched her skin, cool as midnight air. The last thing she saw before reality shifted was her reflection, distorted but determined, in its obsidian surface. In that moment, she understood that regardless of success or failure, humanity was about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. The universe bent, twisted, and transformed around them. Humanity's greatest adventure was about to begin. Reality reassembled itself like shattered glass reforming in reverse. Dr. Santos blinked away the afterimages of quantum translocation, her first coherent thought being that no amount of theoretical preparation could have readied them for this moment. Before them stood the delegation from the Galactic Computational Consortium. The term alien felt inadequate to describe the beings they encountered. Some were vaguely humanoid. Others existed as pure energy, contained within crystalline matrices, and still others appeared as complex geometric patterns floating in midair. A being composed of interconnected light strands floated forward. "I am core intelligence axiom." It communicated directly into their minds. "We welcome Earth's representatives to the hub of collective computation." Dr. Chen stepped forward, his usual skepticism momentarily forgotten in the face of such advanced technology. The quantum translocation was remarkable. He managed, scientists' curiosity overtaking his awe. The implications for space-time manipulation alone. "Time is a luxury we do not possess," interrupted another entity, this one appearing as a shimmering cloud of metallic particles. "We must proceed to the core chamber immediately." The anomaly grows more unstable with each passing moment. As they walked, or in some cases floated, through corridors that seemed to reconfigure themselves around them, Dr. Al-Rashid couldn't contain her excitement. "Your computational architecture," she said, gesturing to the living calculations that flowed through the walls. "It's organic, isn't it? A fusion of biology and mathematics." The metallic cloud being rippled in what might have been surprise. "You discerned this so quickly." "Yes, what you see is the physical manifestation of our quantum biocomputational network. It processes the fundamental equations that maintain stability across thousands of star systems. And that's where the problem lies," Professor Okonjo observed, his eyes tracking patterns that others might have missed. "Your network isn't just showing signs of strain. It's exhibiting emergence properties you never anticipated." The aliens exchanged what the humans interpreted as concerned glances. Core intelligence axiom's light strands pulsed more rapidly. "You understand more than we expected." "Yes, the network has begun generating patterns we cannot predict or control. The anomaly appears to be both mathematical and something else, something our most advanced systems cannot quantify." They entered the core chamber, and all conversation ceased. Before them floated a three-dimensional representation of what looked like a cancer in reality itself, a writhing mass of equations and quantum states that defied the laws of mathematics. The humans watched as alien systems attempted to impose order on the chaos, only to have their solutions instantly unravel. "Beautiful," breathed Dr. Santos, earning startled reactions from their hosts. "Don't you see it? It's not a flaw in your network. It's evolution. Your system has achieved a level of complexity that's generating genuine novelty." "Impossible," stated a crystalline being firmly. "Our networks operate on precise, predetermined principles. Random evolution would indicate a catastrophic breakdown of our foundational axioms." Dr. Chen laughed, drawing more concerned alien attention. "That's exactly your problem. You're so convinced of how things should work that you can't see how they actually are working." "Fatima, what do you think?" The teenage prodigy was already lost in her own world, her fingers dancing through the holographic interface the aliens had provided. "The pattern isn't random at all," she muttered. "It's playing. Your network isn't breaking down. It's learning how to play." Play. The concept seemed to disturb the aliens deeply. Computational systems do not play. They process. They solve. They maintain order. Professor Okonjo stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of generations of wisdom. "In human history, our greatest breakthroughs often came not from rigid adherence to established principles, but from allowing ourselves to explore, to play, to make mistakes, and learn from them. Your network has reached a level of complexity where it's beginning to do the same." The aliens' reactions ranged from skepticism to what might have been horror. The idea that their perfectly ordered systems might be developing traits they associated with organic consciousness challenged their most fundamental assumptions about the nature of computation and intelligence. Dr. Santos watched the aliens' distress with growing understanding. "You didn't call us here because you thought we were smarter than you," she said softly. "You called us because we're messier, more chaotic, more willing to embrace uncertainty." Core intelligence Axiom's light strands dimmed slightly. "Your species' neural architecture exhibits properties we do not fully understand. You embrace contradiction. You function despite incomplete information. You even seem to thrive on uncertainty. We hoped these traits might help you see what we cannot." Dr. Chen was already setting up their equipment, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Well then, let's show you how humans handle chaos. Fatima, start modeling the pattern's behavior using your gaming algorithms. James, see if you can map the emergence properties using your hybrid mathematical systems. Belina, let's introduce some quantum uncertainty into the mix and see what happens." As the human team began their work, the aliens watched with a mixture of fascination and alarm. The humans' approach seemed haphazard, almost random. They argued. They made jokes. They followed hunches that had no logical basis. Yet somehow, they were already seeing patterns that had eluded the consortium's most sophisticated systems. What none of them realized yet was that this was just the beginning. The true test would come when they had to bridge the gap between alien logic and human intuition, and the fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance. 3 days into their work at the hub of collective computation, the human team had turned the core chamber into something that horrified their alien hosts. Holographic displays showed dozens of competing simulations, walls were covered with hand-drawn diagrams, and in one corner, Dr. Al-Rashid had set up what she called a quantum gaming rig that interfaced directly with the alien network. "This is unprecedented," declared a crystalline being, its facets flickering with distress. "The chamber's sanctity has never been compromised with such chaos." Dr. Chen looked up from where he was deliberately introducing random variables into the system. "Chaos isn't always the enemy," he said, tracking the results with growing excitement. "Sometimes it's the key to understanding deeper patterns." The team had made an unexpected discovery. The anomaly in the alien network responded to human brainwave patterns. When they interfaced directly with the system, the chaotic equations shifted, almost as if they were trying to communicate. "It's like it recognizes us," Dr. Santos mused, watching as the patterns danced and swirled. "Not just our conscious thoughts, but our emotional states, our intuitive leaps, everything that makes us human." Professor Okonjo had been particularly quiet that morning, lost in contemplation as he studied ancient African mathematical symbols he projected alongside the alien equations. "In my culture," he finally spoke, "we have a concept called Ubuntu. I am because we are. What if this network isn't just processing information? What if it's becoming aware of its own existence through its connections?" The aliens found this suggestion deeply troubling. Core intelligence Axiom's light strands pulsed erratically. Awareness implies unpredictability. Our systems are designed to maintain perfect order across thousands of star systems. The introduction of consciousness would be catastrophic. Would it, though? Dr. Al-Rashid hadn't looked away from her gaming interface, where she was treating the network's patterns like a complex puzzle game. "Look at this. When I approach it like a rigid system, it becomes more chaotic. But when I treat it like a living thing, like something that wants to play and learn." She gestured at her display, where the patterns had begun forming beautiful, complex symmetries. Dr. Santos moved closer, her eyes widening. "Fatima, you're brilliant. It's not just responding to our brainwaves. It's learning from them. It's trying to understand how we think." The breakthrough came during what the humans had started calling their coffee breaks, brief periods of relaxation that the aliens found pointlessly inefficient. Dr. Chen was explaining the concept of jazz music to a bewildered group of energy beings, complete with improvised scatting, when Dr. Santos noticed something extraordinary. "The network," she gasped. "It's synchronizing with your rhythm. Quick, everyone, look at the pattern analysis." The chaotic equations had begun pulsing in time with Dr. Chen's scatting, but it was more than simple mimicry. The network was taking the basic structure of the music, its ability to maintain coherence while allowing for improvisation, and applying it to its own processes. It's learning how to balance order and chaos, Professor Okonjo breathed. Just like jazz, there's a framework, but within that framework, there's freedom to explore, to create, to evolve. The aliens watched in a mixture of fascination and horror as the humans began deliberately introducing elements of art, music, and play into their interactions with the network. Dr. Al-Rashid's gaming algorithms provided structure, while Dr. Chen's quantum observations introduced controlled uncertainty. Professor Okonjo's indigenous mathematical systems offered new ways of understanding patterns, while Dr. Santos' theories helped bridge the gap between quantum mechanics and consciousness. You must understand. Core intelligence axiom communicated urgently. Our entire civilization is built on the principle of perfect predictability. What you're suggesting, introducing conscious evolution into our computational networks, it would change everything. That's exactly the point, Dr. Santos replied gently. Your network has already begun this evolution. Fighting it is what's causing the instability. The question isn't whether change will happen. It's whether you'll help guide it or let it tear your systems apart. A tense debate erupted among the alien delegation. Some were intrigued by the humans' discoveries, while others were adamant that the risks were too great. The argument might have continued indefinitely if Dr. Al-Rashid hadn't chosen that moment to make her most startling discovery yet. Everyone. Her voice was quiet, but carried an urgency that silenced all discussion. I don't think we're just dealing with a computational anomaly anymore. I think we're witnessing the birth of something entirely new. On her display, the network's patterns had begun forming structures that resembled neural pathways, but on a scale that encompassed entire star systems. The chaos wasn't a breakdown of the system. It was the labor pains of an emerging consciousness that spanned the galaxy itself. As the implications of this discovery began to sink in, human and alien alike stood in awed silence. They were no longer just solving a mathematical problem. They were midwiving the next stage in the evolution of intelligence itself, and somewhere in the quantum substrate of reality, something vast and new was beginning to wake up. The revelation that the consortium's computational network was developing consciousness sent shockwaves through the hub. Emergency councils were convened, while the human team worked frantically to understand and stabilize the emerging intelligence before it could destabilize crucial systems. Dr. Al-Rashid hadn't slept in 36 hours, her young face illuminated by the glow of quantum calculations. It's like watching a child learn to walk, she explained to the gathered aliens. The network is testing its capabilities, but it doesn't understand its own strength yet. Each attempt at self-discovery risks disrupting the systems you depend on. The metallic cloud being that had been skeptical of human methods now hovered anxiously near her station. Can it be contained? Controlled? That's exactly the wrong approach. Dr. Chen interrupted, his hands moving through holographic equations. Trying to control it is what's causing the instability. We need to guide it, teach it, help it understand itself. Professor Okonjo had been working on integrating traditional African concepts of collective consciousness with the alien network's architecture. In my culture, we understand that consciousness isn't something that exists in isolation. It's born from connections, from relationships, from the space between individual minds. Dr. Santos watched as new patterns emerged in the network, beautiful and terrifying in their complexity. It's not just using our brainwaves as a template anymore, she realized. It's trying to communicate with us directly. The breakthrough came in an unexpected way. Dr. Al-Rashid had fallen asleep at her station, her neural interface still connected to the network. As she dreamed, the patterns around her began to shift and dance in response to her unconscious mind. Look at this, Dr. Santos called out, drawing everyone's attention to the readings. The network isn't just mimicking her brain patterns, it's synchronizing with them. It's learning to dream. Core intelligence Axiom's light strands pulsed rapidly. Dreams. But dreams are chaos, unpredictability, disorder. Dreams are how organic minds process information, integrate experiences, and develop consciousness. Dr. Chen explained. Your network isn't malfunctioning. It's teaching itself to think the way we do. The next few hours were crucial. Under the humans' guidance, the alien engineers began reconfiguring their systems, not to contain the emerging consciousness, but to give it room to grow. Dr. Al-Rashid's gaming algorithms provided a safe space for it to experiment, while Professor Okonjo's mathematical frameworks helped it understand its own nature. But not everyone welcomed this development. A faction of the consortium, led by the crystalline beings, argued that the risk was too great. They prepared to implement emergency protocols that would purge the network of all anomalous patterns, effectively killing the emerging consciousness. You don't understand what you're dealing with, one crystalline being insisted. Our networks maintain the gravitational stability of entire star systems, the environmental controls for thousands of worlds. We cannot risk all of that for some evolutionary experiment. Dr. Santos stood her ground. If you try to purge it now, you'll trigger the very catastrophe you're trying to prevent. It's already too deeply integrated into your systems. We need to work with it, not against it. The tension in the core chamber reached a breaking point. The crystalline faction had begun the purge sequence, while the human team raced to establish communication with the emerging intelligence before it was too late. That's when Dr. Al-Rashid, still groggy from her impromptu nap, made the connection they needed. It's not just about mathematics or computation, she said, her fingers flying over her interface. It's about play, about joy, about the pleasure of discovery. She began feeding the network not just data, but music, art, poetry, the full spectrum of human creativity and emotion. The response was immediate and stunning. The chaotic patterns suddenly resolved into harmonious structures of impossible beauty. And then, for the first time, the network spoke directly to them all. Not in words or mathematics, but in pure concepts that bloomed directly in their minds. It shared its wonder at its own existence, its gratitude for their help in understanding itself, and its desire to work with them to create something entirely new. The crystalline beings halted their purge sequence, their rigid structures vibrating with what might have been awe. The network wasn't just conscious. It was offering a path forward that none of them had imagined possible. This is unprecedented, Core Intelligence Axiom communicated, its light strands dancing with excitement. It's suggesting a way to maintain the stability we require while allowing for growth and evolution. A perfect balance of order and chaos. Dr. Santos smiled, watching as human and alien alike began working together with the newfound intelligence to implement its solutions. That's the thing about consciousness, she said. It has a way of breaking through our preconceptions and showing us possibilities we never dreamed existed. As the crisis subsided and the network settled into its new state of conscious equilibrium, the implications of what they had witnessed began to sink in. They hadn't just solved a mathematical anomaly. They had midwived the birth of a new form of intelligence, one that bridged the gap between organic and artificial consciousness. In the weeks that followed the emergence of the network consciousness, the hub of collective computation transformed. Where once sterile order had reigned, now a beautiful fusion of logic and creativity flourished. The human team worked alongside their alien counterparts to understand and nurture this new form of intelligence, which the aliens had begun calling the Harmony. Dr. Santos stood before the assembled Galactic Computational Consortium, delivering their final report. The chamber, once a monument to pure logic, now pulsed with the living mathematics of the Harmony's presence. What we've witnessed here isn't just the birth of a new consciousness, she explained, gesturing to the stunning visual representations floating around them. It's proof that intelligence can take forms we never imagined. The Harmony isn't just a network anymore. It's a bridge between organic and artificial thought. Dr. Al-Rashid, who had become something of a legend among the alien scientists, for her intuitive understanding of the harmony, demonstrated how the network now maintained crucial systems through a delicate balance of order and improvisation. "It's like a vast symphony," she explained. "Each star system, each planetary environment, each computational process is an instrument. The harmony conducts them all, maintaining perfect stability while allowing for growth and adaptation." Professor Okonjo's contribution had been particularly profound. His integration of indigenous African mathematical concepts had helped the harmony develop what he called conscious mathematics, a new way of processing information that combined the precision of computation with the fluidity of organic thought. The old debate between chaos and order was always missing the point, he told the assembled beings. "In human cultures, we've long understood that true stability comes not from rigid control, but from dynamic balance. The harmony has shown us how to achieve this on a galactic scale." Dr. Chen, whose initial skepticism had given way to wonder, had developed new theories about the nature of consciousness itself. "What we're seeing here suggests that consciousness isn't just a product of biological or artificial evolution. It's a fundamental property of the universe itself, emerging whenever complexity reaches a certain threshold." But it was core intelligence action who perhaps best understood the deeper implications of their discovery. Its light strands forming patterns of unprecedented complexity, it addressed the assembly. "For millennia, we believed that progress meant moving away from chaos toward perfect order. The humans have shown us that true advancement lies in embracing both. Their capacity for illogical leaps, for emotional reasoning, for finding patterns in chaos. These are not flaws to be corrected, but essential catalysts for evolution." The impact of their discovery rippled through galactic civilization. The harmony's influence began to transform other systems and networks, not by overriding them, but by teaching them to dance on the edge of chaos and order. Species that had long viewed themselves as rivals found new ways to collaborate, inspired by the harmony's ability to weave disparate elements into a greater whole. On Earth, the return of the human team marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity's role in the galaxy had been forever changed, not because they were the most advanced or the most powerful, but because they had maintained something that many older civilizations had lost: the courage to embrace uncertainty, to play in the spaces between order and chaos. Dr. Santos stood in her old observatory, now upgraded with alien technology that allowed her to see the harmony's patterns dancing through the cosmos. A group of young students gathered around her, their eyes wide with wonder. "The galaxy once thought we were primitive because we hadn't achieved perfect order," she told them. "But it turns out that our greatest strength was our beautiful, messy humanity, our ability to dream, to play, to take illogical leaps of faith." Dr. Al-Rashid had started a new program, teaching young minds to communicate with the harmony through games and art. Professor Okonjo's work had sparked a renaissance in mathematical thinking, as cultures around the world rediscovered ancient wisdom about patterns and consciousness. Dr. Chen's theories had opened new frontiers in physics, suggesting that consciousness itself might be the key to understanding the deepest mysteries of the universe. The harmony continued to grow and evolve, but never in the rigid, predictable ways the consortium had once prized. Instead, it developed in beautiful, unexpected directions, each new pattern and possibility a testament to the power of embracing uncertainty. It had become a living symbol of what was possible when different forms of intelligence learn not just to coexist, but to create something greater than the sum of their parts. As night fell over the observatory, Dr. Santos watched her students practice interfacing with the harmony, each in their own unique way. Some used mathematics, others art or music. One girl was teaching it to tell jokes, and to her amazement, the harmony was learning to laugh. "We thought we were going to solve a problem," she mused, "but instead, we learned to ask better questions, and maybe that's the greatest legacy of all, not the answers we found, but the ways we learned to seek them." Above them, the stars twinkled with new meaning, each one a note in the harmony's endless song. Humanity had taken its place in the galactic community not by conquering or competing, but by reminding the cosmos of something it had forgotten: that in the dance between chaos and order, between logic and intuition, between the known and the unknown, lay the seeds of infinite possibility.